It's a pleasure to introduce you, Dayana Sandoval, who is going to ask me some questions in relation to the Tibet.
Thank you, Luisa. I'm really into Eastern culture. That's why I've prepared some questions about the Tibet in terms of culture, history, and context. So, first of all, tell me a little bit about the Tibet in terms of its geographical location.
Well, in terms of the geographical position of the Tibet, it is important to highlight that the Tibet is enclosed for mountains. That makes that the culture itself and the society evolves without any contact with the foreign people. That has an impact in terms of the development of the technology, the economy, and the politics, because they started to believe that was most important to focus on the roots and the things that they do that in the foreign countries and people. Then that also makes that the Tibetan culture started with a tradition in relation to the ancient belief of of that a foreigner, once a foreigner come, the peace will disappear. Also, in relation to the geographical position, they started to work with the animals that live in that place, like for example the jack, making these animals as a means of transportation. The the typical food is also related to the jacks because from the jacks they take the skin that is used for create the butter tea, and the butter tea is a very important ingredient in the preparation of most of the typical dishes in the Tibet. Also, the relationships in terms of the family changed because the family has a tradition that says that the newborns has to be immersed in a river totally, and that makes the corpse becomes stronger, and if the kid doesn't survive, then they, they think that they are doing like a kind of favor because they are avoiding that kid live a very difficult life. Okay.
You mentioned that most civilizations require contact with other cultures in order to evolve. So my question is, how do you think that the Tibetan culture understands the word evolution?
Well, in terms of evolution, we have to consider that Tibet is very close with their spiritual facts, and that makes that they believe that evolution is more related to abandon the ego. The ego are all those visceral desires that the people have, and what they think is that the person who can avoid this part or work with them in a way that that's not a priority in their lives, they are growing spiritually. They also contrast that part with the Occidental culture. They say that the Occidental people are always related to the success, but in terms of getting a job, have earn more money, have a position where they are famous for the others, and they think that that's not really important, and that's like a very superficial desire. They think that the most important thing that a person has to do is to preserve their roots. When they are preserving their roots, they can grow spiritually, and then they can share with the others doing the best for the community.
Well, I'm really interested about the religion. So, what can you tell me about that? And what does the Dalai Lama represent?
Well, in relation to the religion, we have to consider two Hindu people who were the ones to come to Tibet, and they came with all the mantras and ideas from India. And that's very important because the Tibetan people took all these things and they started to create their own traditions and to develop more the religion and the spiritual part. In that way, they created the lamasery. That's a building where the monks of Tibet live and they pray. They pray a lot for the people, not just for the people in Tibet, but also for the most of the people around the world, and for the countries to live in peace and have more a better relation with the spirits. Yes, but for that reason is that in Tibet the lamaseries are very important. They are very important, and people always believe that if one of the members of the family is part of these places, they feel honored because they think that that's very important, and a good they can that creates a good position for the family. Yes, but there is a problem about that. That's the persecution that nowadays they are living because of the communism, because they think that the religion is dangerous for the communism in China. And in relation to the Dalai Lama, he is seen as the reincarnation of Buddha. For that reason, he is very important, and he is the one who decodes the secrets of life and death. He is the one that could cut the cycle of reincarnations, and for that reason, he is the one that can leader the people and govern in Tibet. He's not just the spiritual leader, but he's more than that. He's like a figure with too much power that can take part of the political and economy of the country. He usually reincarnates, and for that reason, the nowadays Dalai Lama is the fourth reincarnation. That's Tenzin Gyatso, and he's living right now in India because he was exiled for the government of China. There is an important fact in relation to this Dalai Lama, and that's the fact that he had to take the power when he was very young. He was just 5 years old when he had to take that position in the government, and that was because in that moment in the history of Tibet, the communism started to move to move to Tibet, and there were a lot of struggles in relation to that. Then the Dalai Lama came to Tibet because also there is a tradition that says that they have to follow a kind of books, very ancient books that are written with prophecies, and in these prophecies says the place where the next Dalai Dalai Lama is going to be born. Then they go to that place, take the child, and then go to the Potala, that is one of the most important places in Tibet, to be to learn about the civilization, about the politics, about economy, about the culture. He has to learn a lot of things to be considered as a leader. Well, well, as he had to assume the power too soon, also that made that the government of China see that as a kind of weaknesses of the Tibetan people, because well, that's a little kid that is guiding you. Take advantage of that in 1950s and started to fight against the Tibetan people.
What can you tell me about the Tibetan culture nowadays?
Well, in relation to the Tibetan culture nowadays, I could say that the communism in China has a very important role because, well, as I previously mentioned, he started in the 50s. That was the struggle in Chamdo. Chamdo is the door of Tibet. In this place started a struggle because they wanted that Tibet were part of the Tibetan people were part of China, of the communist China, and then what they do is that, well, they started to fight, and one of the members of the government of Tibet, what he did was that he gave up his population, and that makes that the China communism started to move easily in Tibet. But that makes that some consequences arise, like for example the Tibetan monks persecution, because well, China came to Tibet. Tibet lost his independence of China, and then they started to make some rules and to write some rules and to kill the people that they consider was a damage for the government, and that could be seen as a revolutionaries for the rest of the people. Then they killed a lot of Tibetan monks. They persecuted and killed publicly a lot of people that was supposedly related to this religion. And also there were a lot of changes in relation to, well, they burned a lot of historical heritage, lots of documents and things where the Tibetan people portray their cultural facts, their history, things that were very important for them. They banned some practices that they consider as revolutionaries. For example, one of the most important practices in Tibet is the pilgrimism, and that was in certain way banned for the Chinese communism. They censored the free expression, the religion, as I previously mentioned, and they changed the official language for the Chinese. And that makes that nowadays some of the childs in Tibet they don't know about the Tibetan language. They are more familiarized with the Chinese, and also they don't follow the practices of the ancestors because they are more interested in the trendings and the technology and the ideal of successful that exists here in Occident. Yeah. Um, well, the means of transportation also changed because, as I previously mentioned, they usually move using, they move around Tibet using the yak. But with the communism, they started to move on by car or by airplanes. They were more connected with all these kind of things, and the foreigners also were allowed things that couldn't happen before, and that changed a lot. Also, the vision and the culture itself.
Um, why is it that the Tibetan culture is being threatened nowadays?
Well, as I previously mentioned, it is related to the communism in China that came to Tibet and produces a lot of changes in the way of life and the way to understand the country and the world.
Thank you, Lisa. I learned a lot today.
Thank you, guys, for your questions.